Are you, Congressman, are you in New York, I should say? Are you in Middle Tennessee, or are you in Washington, D.C.? I've got him on the air, KGB. Congressman, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good, good, good. You in D.C.?
I'm heading there later today.
Okay, so how worried are you? The big quote out of Iran this morning, they are saying that Trump and America, you started this and we are going to finish it. We've got terror levels that have now been risen. And, of course, you are the chairman of the House Armed Forces Strategic Forces Subcommittee. So, as such, how worried are you this morning?
Well, I mean, they're talking pretty big. They have sent some missiles towards Israel, as we know. They don't seem to have much ground-to-air capability. Israel flew 60 jets over their soil the other night without losing a single plane. We ran our mission without, to our knowledge, a shot being fired at us. So I don't know what their capacity is, but their terror cells have been the problem for some time now, and was a big reason for this strike. They've been able to wreak havoc all over the Middle East and other places with their proxies. And so, that's still going to be a threat, and that's going to be, I guess, their only means to fight back is with terror cells. So we're going to have to be very vigilant. We've been dealing with this now for years anyway. So I would step lightly if I were them, because if they go after one of our bases, they're going to see an escalation that I don't think that they're prepared to handle.
So Operation Midnight Hammer, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm not a military guy, but that's pretty impressive how that whole thing was executed. How satisfied are you that President Trump and the military, they've got this?
Well, I don't think anybody else has the capability to do that. I think that sends a message to President Xi and President Putin that our bomber force is formidable. I would hope it would be a deterrence for future aggression on their parts. But it's an incredible mission to send bombers from the middle of the United States halfway around the world, conduct that mission, come back, and we'll get briefed on it, I guess, later today or tomorrow. There'll probably be more than one briefing. I think they're doing a whole of Congress briefing tomorrow, but hopefully we'll get a little bit more detailed briefing in our HASC role. So I'm anxious to see some of the photos and hear some more of the details.
So as usual, and I know, Congressman, that you'll be shocked by this, but the brain trust of AOC and Jasmine Crockett and others, I'm sure, are calling for the president to be impeached for not going through Congress. We seem to go through this every single time. Obviously, there's precedent for this. A president is, head of the armed forces, and he's allowed to do this.
Well, they're coming out. The UN watchdog who looks at nuclear buildup and materials and controls were saying, that Iran was probably not that close to a nuclear weapon. I can tell you, I get an awful lot of briefings related to things like this, and I think the threat was very real. I think that the amount of enriched uranium they had was at a point that, you've heard open source reports say it could be 3 months. They could do a crude weapon in as short as a week. And, frankly, I think Iran would use them. And now I see someone from Russia saying there's countries thinking of giving nuclear warheads to Iran. So, there is a fear of escalation, but there was no question what the Iranians were doing. People, think this was all about Israel, but as much as I guess Israel calls, or Iran calls Israel the little Satan, they call us the great Satan. And so, the threat to the United States is big or greater than it is to Israel. They're just in a worse spot in terms of proximity and easier to get at. But ever since 1979, Iran has been an enemy of ours. I look at China as our number one adversary, Russia probably as number two, Iran was number three, North Korea probably number four. And so if we can take one of those off the table with strikes like President Trump authorized, I'm all about it. I thought it was the right move to make based on the intel that I've been given over the last few years.
Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us. Congressman, give me some insight, because I've always found this fascinating, whether we're talking about, massive budget bills or intelligence on Iran. But how is it you can have so many different narratives when it comes to, for example, in this case, Iran, where you have some people saying, oh, they weren't really that close, and other people, such as yourself, is saying, oh, yeah, they were close. Why is there such a wide swing?
Well, I think what they say publicly and what we get privately, we have, intel people that are on the ground. Israel has people on the ground, and they're very good. Obviously, they have a lot at stake. And, you can kind of see things, whether it's, through satellite imagery or other means of detection that I can't talk about. You have an idea of what it takes to build a bomb, and they were close. And we just don't know what they would do. They seem to be very unstable. They operate through their proxies, as we all know. And frankly, I think they've been getting away with an awful lot. If you look at historically, Barack Obama was apologizing for American exceptionalism, and it felt like it weakened our standing. And then Trump came in, and the military felt strong again, and people didn't know what he was going to do. Biden came in, telegraphed all his moves, or he would kind of flip-flop around on what he would do with Taiwan or not do with Taiwan. And I don't think people respected the military. I think the military was weakened because of DEI and wokeness and other reasons. We had recruiting issues. Now we've exceeded our recruiting goals in the Army. And when Trump says he's going to do something and he does it, it sends a strong message to world leaders that, this guy doesn't screw around. And I think it instills pride in the military. They know there's direction. And so, I guess we get a lot of briefings. We try to make the best decisions that we can make, and ultimately you get your generals and your war room together and input from the different folks that I work with, and you hope that you make the right decision for the country. But yes, you're always going to get your Bernie Sanders and your AOCs and say this wasn't necessary. But I just remember the projection of weakness that we experienced under those administrations, and it feels a lot better to have our adversaries knowing that we're capable, we're ready, we're lethal, yep. And you shouldn't screw around.
All right, coming up, I got to check traffic real quick. Coming up, I'm going to ask you, number one, do you believe that we have, to use the president's term, obliterated their nuclear arsenal? And how will we know, when will we know the clarity as far as exactly how much damage we did? That's number one. And number two, and I do find this one interesting, the headline is, House Republicans plot a vote on a resolution to condemn the Los Angeles riots. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more with Congressman Scott DesJarlais. It is 6:45. Time to check the roads on WTN. Man, it is going to be hot today, high around 95, possibility of some thunderstorms. It's going to feel like 100 Tuesday and Wednesday, high around 96. And again, it's going to feel like in the triple digits. Congressman Scott DesJarlais is joining us. All right, so Congressman, how will we know, because you have the president say that it was obliterated and we've taken the bomb out of their hands. Others are using language maybe a bit more cautiously. When will we and how will we know the extent of the damage to Iran's nuclear capabilities?
Oh, as I said, people on the ground that know where they were at and, how close they were, different operatives, they'll be able to do some assessments. We'll look at the behavior of the Iranians after the fact. They're probably going to talk tough and say, oh, you didn't do any damage. I was a little shocked at the number of the bunker busters that were dropped. I didn't know if it was going to be 2, but apparently it was 6 on the Hardin facility at Fort Haas. But it'll take a little while. But we know where the enriched uranium was stored, and those apparently were hit on the surface with Tomahawk. When you're trying to get deep inside a mountain, you think of a mine or something. That's that's a lot of earth to get through to get to the to get to the source. And so, I don't know that President Trump could come out with, exact confidence and say, hey, they're obliterated. It's going to take a little time. The new Joint Chiefs, General Kane, who was just before our committee a week or two ago, said there was extremely or excessive damage. I think that's a good sign hearing that from him. Trump always has a little more bravado to him, but we'll get briefings this week that will be more detailed, and so maybe there'll be something I can share with you. I would say that it definitely set it back to the point that it's going to create problems, but I would agree with you. I don't know at this point whether it was 100% successful or 70%. We just really no way of knowing just yet, but there'll be ways to assess that moving forward. And, hopefully it's not like we can't hit them again if we need to.
Yeah, boy, there is that. And of course, I don't really need to ask you about the wide open borders and, the dangers that are in our country because of Joe Biden's wide open borders. We all know the Syrians, the Chinese, the Iranians, all these folks from America-hating countries have come into our country through Joe Biden's wide open border. Based on the intelligence, though, I've got to ask, how worried are you that among the choices that they have to retaliate against America, are you worried about sleeper cells here in America?
I was worried about it before we did this. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that, there's possibilities with drones and other items like that. But yeah, that's been a concern of mine. And, you don't throw a punch unless you're willing to take a punch. And if we don't think we're going to get a bloody nose out of this in some form or fashion, we're probably wrong. I am very concerned. We'll be hyper vigilant watching for these groups, but there's no doubt they poured through the borders, and I'm sure they're organizing, and it may be something very rudimentary, but it doesn't take much to really disrupt our day-to-day living. So we got to be hyper vigilant, and yes, I'm quite concerned about it.
So apparently, when you get back to D.C., the headline is House Republicans plot vote on resolution to condemn the Los Angeles riots. The resolution, which will be considered by the House Rules Committee Monday, to tee up floor consideration later in the week. Apparently what it's going to do is it's going to recognize the right to assemble and protest peacefully and condemns the violence perpetrated against federal, state, and local law enforcement in Los Angeles. So it looks like it's going to be a resolution. I guess my question is, I appreciate the sentiment. I truly do, but what would be the point?
Frankly, I think there's a hell of a lot better use of our time than some of these resolutions. It's a shame on you resolution. Doesn't really do anything. It just shows that, hey, we care about this. I think there's another resolution condemning the violence in Minnesota, which, that was tragic that you get somebody that, goes to attack political operatives, whether they're, in the Minnesota State House or anywhere. There's Steve Scalise on the baseball field. Anytime you get people they're going after politicians and shooting them, that's the problem. But again, Congress doing a resolution condemning the violent actions in Minnesota is just that. It's like you shouldn't have done that, but it has no teeth. We need to be getting Trump's bill through, the reconciliation bill. We're waiting on the Senate to get that back to us. We are doing MilCon VA appropriation bills, so that's one bill that deals with military construction for our troops and benefits for our veterans. That was about the only thing on the list this week that I thought was worthwhile. But as far as a lot of these other bills that we do that are just, to me, kind of show bills, maybe it's good for somebody in their district, and I shouldn't be so
cynical,
I guess, negative about it. But I'm with you. It's like we have so many important things going on right now that sometimes it looks like you just put bills out there to fill the calendar to look busy and wag your finger at somebody.
Yeah, I know that. I know you know this. You and I have spoken about it, but there's a lot of frustration among Donald Trump supporters that we have not been codifying some of these executive orders, and there's a lot of frustration. I think. I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but with 45 seconds left, is there frustration within the Republican Party, within the House of Representatives, that Speaker Mike Johnson just this kind of a thing with the show bills, as opposed to getting some of these things out of the House of Representatives?
I don't know that I've heard any frustration directly at Mike Johnson. I mean, I personally am frustrated that we don't seem to focus on high priorities, and it just feels like not getting this reconciliation. I hate calling it the big beautiful bill, but getting the reconciliation bill done, in a sense, has us somewhat paralyzed. We need to get our defense authorization bill done. That's extremely important. We were going to do that back in May, and then it was June. Now it's July. The farm bill is still sitting there stuck in the mud. And so I just feel like for some reason we're somewhat paralyzed by this bill, and we need to get it moving. Hopefully the Senate will make that happen this week. And I don't know if we'll hit the 4th of July deadline, but maybe the week after. But then I think you'll really see things start to ramp up. But you're right, we should be codifying these executive orders. Why not be doing at least, 1 or 2 of those a week, something meaningful? And I'm actually going to speak to Mike Johnson just because of you today. I'm going to ask him that. I was on the radio and said that people back home are frustrated that we're doing these other bills that, just seem to be show bills when we should be doing these other bills. So I hadn't felt anybody blaming Mike Johnson, but I am going to talk to him on behalf of Dan Mandis this week.
Thank you very much, Congressman Scott DesJarlais. And you can use the term ticked off if you want, just to make sure he knows that I'm, really mean some business over here.
Yeah, you're really, really mad. But no, it's the constituents. I get it. You base this on the calls that you're getting, and I'm going to say, hey, here in Tennessee, we'd like to see more of this happening, and really, I'd like to be able to give them a better answer as to why it's not. So let's see what we can find out.
All right, Congressman. Thank you very much, Congressman Scott DesJarlais on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.